Hi guys, just a quick update on the current status of the winter project. Just about ready for launch. We're going to be launching in about a week from now. And this is the second week of May in 2020. So in about, let's see, about seven or 8 days, we're going to be in the water. And I just wanted to give you a tour of the engine room to show you everything that's been done this year. I'll give you a tour of the other areas of the boat later on. But what we have here are essentially two rebuilt Mercruiser 496 mags. They were both removed from the boat. I have a previous video that explains why, but it ties back to some work that was done by the previous owner's mechanics, which led to excessive corrosion, even though the long blocks were replaced in 2014. So we had to take them both out, replace the headers on both engines, new pistons. We cleaned the injectors, new risers and manifolds. The flywheel covers were missing, so we had to install flywheel covers, and there were a number of other things that were just not done properly. So while the engines were out, we took that opportunity to address those areas that are really hard to get to. You know, what things proactively can we do that would normally be a monumental task if the engines were in the boat. So while they were out, we took care of a couple other accessories, like this water heater here, stainless steel water heater. This was replaced while the engines were out. Considering the other one was 13 years old and these are very difficult to get out with the engines in, we just seized the opportunity to replace it. I moved the generator start battery over to this side, to the starboard side, and that freed up some space for the audio amplifier batteries. I'll show you those in a second. I'll just pan around. I did replace the lights in here with LEDs, so it's a little bit brighter. Replaced the engine hatch actuator. Replaced the battery chargers. These are the Pronautic 1260p and the 1240p. They're mounted on a custom brushed stainless steel panel that I had fabricated. Installed fuel and water separators for each engine. That's the, of course, port side. And I'll just go over to the starboard side. This here is a fuel water separator we added for the generator. You'll notice that the bowl is a clear bowl. That's not allowed in an engine compartment, so we are replacing that with a metal bowl, which I have right here. So I think we just have to screw this off and screw that on. I think that's all we need to do, and then we'll be in compliance. US Coast Guard doesn't allow you to use plastic bowls in an engine room. It has to be above deck, and they're commonly used for outboard engines. All right, so let's go over here, look at the two audio amplifier batteries. These are North Star. These are, let's see, 27, group 27. No, I'm sorry, group 24 M's. So I've got two of them, and they're wired in parallel. And they're wired to a circuit breaker. And from there, it goes to a battery switch. And then from the battery switch, it goes to the amplifier closet. Last year, I had one battery. I had one lead acid, and it worked okay. But this year, since I added a fourth amplifier, I just decided to add an additional battery. All right. So last season, we did put in new C strainers for each engine. So those are less than a year old. We did replace the bilge pump and the switch as a proactive measure. You can see just below the light, there's a wire that goes through the hull, and that leads to one of the Seablaze X2 blue-white underwater lights. So back to the engines real quick. You know, this is probably the most overlooked area of the boat because people don't commonly stare at the engines when they're on the boat. And I think when you have a boat, you have to be just overly cautious with what's happening in your engine room. And you really have to go into it with the mindset of, if something needs repair, I'm going to repair it, and I'm going to have it done right. There really are no shortcuts people should be taking with boats. You hear about explosions on boats, fires, water intrusion, you know, and most of these issues are due to neglect. And so this year I just decided, you know, it was a huge expense, but on the flip side, when my wife and I are out in the ocean, I now know everything that was done to these engines. I know the current state of the boat. I feel very comfortable really having pulled this thing apart, that this project was done right. The mechanic that I had do the work is very gifted. He a younger guy and just really knows these engines and has an outstanding reputation. You know, and he found things, you know, even down to the very minute details, like this is the wrong washer, this is the wrong bolt that they installed, you know, very, very little minor details that he uncovered. We also had to put a new engine mount in. The other one was corroded, and it wasn't even mounted properly, actually. We put in new alternators, all new belts, new pulleys. Trying to think here. He also flushed out the coolant reservoir. So cleaned these out internally, flushed them out, put all new coolant in. Of course, we had the oil changed. You know, that's like the most basic thing to do on these. We did check the cool fuel modules. Everything's fine. I think with the fuel water separators in conjunction with these, I think that we're going to be in a much better place with our fuel situation. You know, always ensuring that we've got good, you know, high quality, clean, water-free fuel flowing through these engines. So again, the alternators were replaced in both engines. A lot of hoses, the coolant hoses that are connected to the Bravo 3 out drives, those were replaced. I did have the Bravo 3 out drives completely restored. Had a Y pipe that needed to be replaced here internally on the starboard side. Just trying to think here while I'm down here. If there's anything else I want to talk about. Again, we just did so much down here, and the project started, let's see, back in October 2019, and here we are in May of 2020, and I'm still working off my little checklist. Generator is also being repaired. We did replace a number of components. These are very finicky, these Kohler generators. They have a reputation for being overly complicated because of all the electronic fail-safes and control systems, which are great. They protect the unit, but they're not so good when you have many faults and you're trying to get it started, and it's really not giving you too much information. You know, there's only so much information you can give on a very basic LCD display. So we are still trying to figure out why it doesn't continue to run when you fire it up. It'll run for a few seconds, then it shuts off. We've checked the fuel solenoid. We replaced the fuel pumps. We've cleaned we did replace the fuel injector. Did all the common servicing on it, and we're still having some issues. So hopefully we'll get that resolved within the next week before it goes in the water, because I really want to use this year. Last year we didn't use the generator, and this year I want to be able to take advantage of it. And other things that we replaced, we had to replace one of these breakers. I think it was this one here. It wasn't setting properly. We did find a wiring issue behind these switches here that was preventing me last year from starting the port engine unless the battery parallel switch was on, which doesn't make any sense. This is for emergency purposes, which allows you to cross the battery, or really tie the two batteries together, the starboard start and the port start, in case of a problem starting one of the engines. If there's lack of voltage, you can always use the other engine's battery to get it started. And for some reason last year, even though the batteries were good, they were brand new, I had to have the parallel switch on. Come to find out, it was a connection that it was a poor connection, but we couldn't see it. It wasn't obvious. Even though I took this panel off last year and did some testing with the multimeter, it was just one of those weird idiosyncratic problems that we discovered when we actually spent some time really digging into it. So got that resolved this year. All right, back to the battery chargers real quick. So with the battery chargers, this one here, the 1240p, charges the generator start and the audio amplifier batteries, and this 1260p charges the port start engine, which is also the ship system's battery array. It's two deep cycles that are wired in parallel, and then it also starts it charges the starboard battery as well. Forgot to mention that we did install the Raymarine RB220 through hulls, and this little piece there I was vacuuming and cleaning earlier. Still have a little bit of cleaning to do. I've got some vacuuming to do still, but yeah, so these are the Raymarine RB220 through hulls. These are, we've got one on each side of the boat. I have, with the way that the hull is, I had to install two of these, one on each side, to prevent any pattern issues or obstruction. And so they come as a pair, one for the port side, one for the starboard side. And there's a wiring harness that allows you to connect them together to one single feed that goes back to my Raymarine network. It actually ties into the Axiom Pro 12 RBX directly. So there's one there, and then if I go over to this side, I've got one right here. All right, I think that's it for now. If you made it through the video, congratulations. That was quite long, but I just wanted to take the time to walk you through everything that had been done this year. I'm sure I'm missing something, but that's 90% of it.